Hey, Fine Homebuilding enthusiasts, we have some big news. Fine Homebuilding and Benjamin Opdyke are hosting a one-day live event in Portland, Oregon on January 12th. Pro Talk Live will feature inspiring talks by builders Josh Salinger, Tim and Brian Euler, and architect Lindsay Shack. There's also a happy hour networking event. All of this takes place at the amazing Salmon on Red event space. You can enter to win 2 free tickets to Pro Talk Live on January 12th at the Red on Salmon in Portland. You can enter to win at finehomebuilding.com/ProTalk sweepstakes. Entries are accepted between 12 a.m. Eastern Time, November 30th, and 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, December 3rd. The winner will be chosen on Monday, December 6th. The winner is responsible for their own transportation and lodging for the event. Once again, you can enter to win at finehomebuilding.com/ProTalk sweepstakes. I hope to see you there. At finehomebuilding.com, we've taken our 40 years of experience publishing an expert-written magazine for architects, designers, builders, remodelers, and do-it-yourselfers, and used it to build the best online membership available to anyone interested in high-quality, high-performance homes. With an all-access membership, you can read 40 years of FHB print issues, watch hundreds of in-depth how-to videos, follow the annual FHB house build, plan your next project with our new project guides, and much more. Visit finehomebuilding.com to sign up for All Access, the most important tool in your toolbox.
Thinking like Jericho at 7,500 BC or something. It's like, how did this person say, hey, if I find this particular stone and crush it and burn it and then add water to it again, it's amazing. It's like, what? How did that happen?
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Fine Homebuilding Senior Editor Mark Peterson.
Hello.
Fine Homebuilding Director of Video, Colin Russell.
Hey there.
And our producer, Jeff Rose.
Hi.
Please email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, Mark, I want to start off with you. You sent a very exciting photo this morning of what's going on at your place. You want to describe it to the listeners?
Yes, I am very excited. We were just kind of starting, we started framing a day before yesterday and set up our first section of wall last night. So
in the dark.
The concrete, in the dark. Well, I try to work from like 7 to 4:30 and get out there around 4:30, and it's dark in a half an hour. So I mean, literally, the first thing we do is set up lights and work till 7 or so. But it's but you know what? I'll take that. The concrete guys came out on Monday, Tuesday, and which was good in and of itself, but you just so nerve-wracking because it's on a slab on grade house. It's so important that thing is flat.
Yeah.
And they actually did a really nice job. I don't know if you can see in that picture, but the lights raking across the floor, and after a full day of rain, there's puddles all over, but none deeper than quarter inch, half inch here, and it's just. Yeah. And when you see it in the daylight, just regular, it just looks perfect. So I'm thrilled to death. But yeah, now I get to start framing.
How did they finish it? How long did it take?
They used a big I don't know what it's called, but it's like a paddle float deal. So and it just and they sealed the garage part too, and that's just like glass. I mean, I thought it would be super slippery after the rain, but it wasn't too bad. But yeah, that paddle wheel, besides running over one of my rough-in plumbing pipes and busting it off, it did a really nice job.
So you're talking about like a power trowel, and it's got blades on it, and a gas motor and a handle, and someone puts this on at the right time, which always is very mysterious to me how they know.
It is, and it just seems like if you lift up too hard or push down, it just seems like it could dig, just dig a huge trench.
That is not for amateurs, I'm sure.
I'm sure there's a huge learning curve there. It's like sand floors, definitely learn on someone else's.
Yeah. So the big plan is to keep putzing away on the evenings and weekends, and my trusses should be here within about 2 weeks. And after that point, I'll just kind of hand it off to the framing crew, hopefully, and let them do because it's just me and my neighbor working nights, so we can't be lifting heavy floor trusses or heavy.
Is he a tradesperson, or is this a
nope
new
just
to him?
a neighbor? No, he's a total. He had no construction experience whatsoever, so he's just helping me out.
That's awesome.
Which is
nice.
Yeah,
neighbors.
it's very, very helpful. Yes, yeah, it
So,
is. We do have nice neighbors.
Finally, how long did the placement take of your slabs?
The placement of it. So the first one they poured was what was it, 28 by 44?
Wow.
And they did that one, and then they did about a 20 by 20 in addition to that. And that first day, the trucks were gone by 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. They had a pump truck for those because the one was so big. But even the next day, I think they had the next day. So the first day was the main house, and then half of the mother-in-law crawl space storage area. And the next day was the garage and the mother-in-law storage area. But, it was cool one day. So it's like watching paint dry. You go out there, I stopped out there at noon, and they're just watching it dry. So it's one of those things where they work really hard for 2 hours and don't do anything for a few hours, and then work really hard again for 2 hours. And
were they walking through the soup and like pulling up the mesh and all of that? Like
I had it set on rebar. I had it set on rebar chairs, the one part, but the other mesh. Did I watch him do it? No. But,
okay.
I did look to see that their muck rakes did have hooks on them, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You weren't out there watching them every minute?
I have a full-time job. I cannot do that. I would love to. I was peeking out the window now and again, but
I don't know, a couple photos, a blog. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I posted. Well, I do. I post a lot of that on Instagram. So I don't know. Do you guys have? I never did ask. Do you have a official Fine Homebuilding Instagram?
Oh yes, sir. Very active.
Because I do not. Well, I know we do as a company, but you individually do as well.
Oh no, I use the companies. Oh, you mean do I personally have Instagram? I was kicked off.
Oh, there's a good. Might be able to do a whole podcast on that.
I think I'm going to segue to other parts of the conversation here. What have you been doing, Colin?
Well, it hasn't been that long since I was on the podcast, and if you know my construction rate, 2 weeks means not much, but I did finally, I had a couple small pieces of drywall that I had not fully fastened because I wanted to peek in and double check that my plumbing wasn't leaking, like any tiny little drips, So they were not. So I closed it back in and actually taped the room, and now I'm ready to put the liquid flashing in the shower.
Cool.
But the thing that I was concerned with the plumbing was I switched from copper to PEX. And this is a first for me. So, like, I chose a system, went to Lowe's, bought all the stuff, and cut my copper out and put in PEX. And it was really something. I was really impressed in one way and still nervous in another.
Because it's plastic you're nervous? Or
and just like, because it's, well, first of all, like, it happened so fast, this can't be real. Like, because
you like didn't trust yourself because it went too smoothly.
Well, that's part of it. But I also noticed, like if I made a connection on an elbow and put pressure on it, I could actually spin it, and it didn't leak. And I was like, this does not feel right.
So you did shark bites.
Yeah, with the clamp that goes around, and you grab the little nub, and
So those, even the non-shark bites, when the true crimping clamp, you can spin those fittings, which it's really handy.
I find it very disconcerting.
Yeah, I was. So, I mean, it's fine once I get used to it, but I'm not yet. It was like, So like I said, I left peepholes for me, so I closed them up and and finally taped my bathroom. So
what system did you use? How much did the tools cost? Would you tell others it's a good way to go?
Oh, absolutely. It seems fantastic. I don't know the name of the system, but I believe it all is shark bite, right? Is it blue handles on the pliers, the
if you got it at Lowe's, it's all shark bite.
Yeah,
those crimpers.
Yeah, so those crimpers, I think they were under $50. Like, I don't even really remember because I bought the stuff a while back and then just got to it. But I felt like I didn't spend a lot of money. and it worked so well. And literally, like, I'm working in tight spaces because I'm remodeling, and like, cleaning elbows and putting down the parts, getting the flux, heating it up, making sure you don't light anything on fire. I mean, the speed factor is just amazing.
There's a high probability that I'm never going to sweat a joint again. And I have no regrets.
I'm a little saddened by both of you, but I do understand the appeal of those products.
So in my house, I'm actually a bigger fan. I use that. So in the barn door, that's what I plumbed up the bathroom / kitchen / whatever wet bar.
What'd you call it? Barn door?
The barn dominium.
Barn door.
I used that and it worked great, but in the house I chose Uponor just because what I like about Uponor is so the crimp fittings that you have, you put a fitting inside of there and then you crimp it tight. Well, if you have a 1/2-inch pipe, that drops it down to like 3/8 that fitting does. With the Uponor system, and Lowe's doesn't, and no big box stores carry Uponor. I don't think it's strictly through plumbing supplies, but Uponor, you expand the fitting with an expansion tool and then it clamps back down. So that fitting is actually the same inside diameter as the pipe is. So you lose no pressure, and that fitting is constantly, that PEX stuff is just unbelievable stuff. So that fitting is constantly, it actually gets tighter with time. It's constantly trying to get back to its original shape. So,
I like that system. Yeah, sounds good.
But the
Matt
problem
Milham
is the tool,
did a feature on the tools and the systems for these respective PEX fitting and combination and tubing systems, and we'll put a link to that on the podcast page because he broke it all down, and Mark nailed it. Some of the fittings are smaller in ID than the tubing, and what I've heard from folks who research domestic water use is it doesn't matter because fixtures nowadays are so low flow that it doesn't really matter.
But if you had a bigger, for outdoor spigots, or if you had a sprinkler system or things like
irrigation,
that,
it would totally matter.
Or even you're filling up your bathtub. That does make a difference. But yeah, at a faucet, at your sink or kitchen, it's not going to matter that much. You're right.
I smashed my bathtub with a sledgehammer, so I don't have to worry about it.
How was that? Did you have headphones on? That's a loud project.
Yeah, it's very loud, and there was basically glass flying everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, but
how you been, Jeff?
It's kind of satisfying.
Been doing on your place? You were saying that you had to get your lug nuts replaced, and I've had to do that. That's super fun.
Yeah, I mean that was other than a little frustration because what I was talking about was like that was actually the first one was the bad one. The first one I tried, it's like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. But it was only one bad one, really bad one.
So we should tell folks, Jeff has, like many folks, steel lug nuts with this kind of chrome stamped steel cover on it. And what happens is it rusts behind that, and then it swells up, and you can't get a socket on there, right?
Yeah. So 19 millimeter wouldn't fit, but 21 millimeter would spin, and all the SAE ones, same thing, either wouldn't fit or spun. Eventually got it out, though. But mostly I've been working outside.
What have you been doing?
Just dealing with leaves.
I've had the pleasure of using a Ego backpack cordless blower, which is pretty sweet. It doesn't have the velocity and air movement of a big commercial gas unit, but I would say for a consumer, it's all you really need. It's good thing. It's nice that it's quiet. It just works. There's no futzing around trying to get it running, and it doesn't stink. It's fantastic.
And how about with the backpack? Is it more comfortable? I know using a weed whacker, for example, like it starts hurting my forearms after a while.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's not light because it's got a freaking enormous 56-volt battery.
Just one? Does it have
just
one or a couple?
One. It's this big, Mm-hmm. And it works great. It's a delight to use.
I have a gas and it's not a backpack, but it is battery powered. I would say if I use it 20 times, I'll use the gas one once, and it's only because I have to do it for a long time. That's the only time I'll use the gas. This
thing runs about an hour, and I especially like the turbo setting, which is a little button you get to press on the top of the handle, and it ramps up.
11.
11, yep.
I've been working on the stairs a little bit too. I put some photos up for you guys to see what I've been doing because I've been talking about it forever. But I started putting up my pine paneling, and it's fun, satisfying. It's great to get it out of the way.
Yeah, it looks clean. Looks really nice.
Thank you.
It looks that stylish with that fireplace, right?
Isn't that thing great?
Yeah, it's like a blast from the past almost. Like I used to see it in wasn't that in George Jetson's home?
The Jetsons had a fireplace. That's kind of funny.
In the future, you'll be able to have a fireplace that doesn't suck heat out of your house.
I think we're just going to put a bunch of candles in it. Those things are so. What we're talking about, folks, is a kind of cone-shaped fire hood. They're often described, and it's a mid-century thing, and they're horrible as far as heating, but they do create some ambiance.
Is that something you had? Did you buy that new, or did you have that from a previous?
The story on that is my dad bought it from a friend, in the early 90s, I want to say. It was in his friend's master bedroom, and they had never used it once, and my dad bought it, and he was going to put it in the living room. And it was in my parents' basement for decades, and my mom finally made me take it. Now I've been moving it around.
Did you actually build the studio around the fireplace? That's why you made the studio? So it would have a home?
Yeah.
I've been trying to sell it on Facebook Marketplace unsuccessfully. I would love to get rid of it. But now that it's in a space with more room, that's more stylish, it's kind of growing on me.
I honestly think it looks really cool.
And you said is it a gas burner, wood burner?
No, it's wood.
It is wood. Cool.
Yeah, enameled steel. Hey, that thing is pristine. No one has ever used it.
Yeah, no, it looks brand new.
So we heard from our friend Jonathan, who had interesting news from his town. He writes, as you've noticed in the past, lumber prices are high. Perhaps this was a factor in my local parks department offering lumber for sale. The lumber comes exclusively from local parkland. Instead of felling dangerous trees and leaving them to rot, Montgomery Parks is now milling select trees already slated for removal. Some buddies and I got nice slabs of air-dried oak, ash, and maple. Mulberry, cherry, and black walnut slabs are also for sale at good prices. The workers could tell you where each slab came from, and the money generated goes right back into maintaining our parkland and open spaces. They said this first ever lumber sale was so successful, they will do it again in 6 months. Lumber was local before it was cool to be local. With regards, Jonathan, Silver Spring, Maryland. That's fantastic. Did you guys see these slabs? They were amazing.
Yeah, yep, that is amazing. There's a couple towns south of me, Berea, Kentucky. The college there owns, I think, thousands of acres in the Appalachian, right at the beginning. I don't know if it's considered foothills, but it's just, stunningly beautiful. And I was out there walking the dog one time, and this kind of woodsy looking guy came out, and we started walking together and talking, and he knew everything about it, and turned out he was like the ranger caretaker of the place.
Cool.
So I got a little free tour for about a half an hour, and he was telling me that in that area, it's kind of like a national park, it's open to the public, they remove trees. They'll allow loggers to come in and remove dead trees or nuisance trees or trees that might endanger people, but they make them use horses to skid them out of there.
That's cool.
So I would love to go there and watch that process sometime.
There was a logging team in Vermont that I saw who used horses, and it was so you didn't destroy people's, woodlands, right, with skidders.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, yep.
This comes from Alex in Winona, Minnesota. After listening to discussion on lime mortar, I think you may have overlooked some important advantages to type O mortar. Although it does have Portland by a significant portion in volume, it's a very soft mortar, 350 psi, and as a rule of thumb, the pointing mortar should be softer than the material it surrounds. It cures in a predictable manner, and because of the Portland, has some resistance to freeze-thaw. The interesting lime mortars are naturally hydraulic, which have some impurities that allow it to cure with water. I think the Limeworks guys can explain all of this. These NHL mortars have ratings such as 2, 3, etc. Some of the higher ratings have compressive strengths that far exceed type O and can be used for structural applications with the permeability, flexibility the higher Portland mortars don't offer. All this being said, Type O mortar can be made from materials you can purchase in any hardware store. You don't have to come back in 3 days to joint the work. You don't have to continually wet it, be fearful of freezing the night a month after you do the work. After working on countless projects where Portland sand mixes and other hard mortars were used, I can only wish that Type O mortar had been used on these projects. I think you will find Type O mortar is what's used by most restoration companies, and it's a good first step. Regards, Alex. Alex, that's fantastic info. Thank you. I love our smart listeners.
Kylie sent that. I did not hear the conversation. Was that? I'm behind on my podcast, but I did not hear that conversation. But Kylie sent out, a study on lime and versus Portland or whatever it was, and that sent me down. I'm not even going to tell you how many minutes I spent the rabbit hole that I went down on that one. But my understanding is Portland has a lot more clay. I mean, Portland is basically lime and clay, correct?
I don't know.
Is that right?
You tell us.
I think so. And
You're
then
the
lime is
new expert on this.
I know more about it than I ever thought I ever would. So lime concrete or whatever is mostly lime with a little bit of clay, and Portland is lime with like 30 or 40% clay, and it's just much more. The lime stuff, the old stuff is really flexible, and I watched this little video on. They're repairing these shit. This BBC, like I said, I'm not going to say how long I went down this rabbit hole, but there was a BBC thing talking about they've been repairing all these 300-year-old cottages with the Portland version, and it's so inflexible that it's just causing all sorts of problems, rot and just structural problems. And they analyzed some of the stuff that they were using in the old days, the original stuff, and apparently it had a bunch of animal hair in it, like a really large amount.
Is it a binder or a reinforcement?
Yeah, it's a binder. So it's not Portland. It's just mostly lime and the other ingredients that go into concrete. And then they put a bunch of hair in it. And he picked up this panel, and it was about a 1/4-inch panel, and it was almost like a sheet of vinyl. It was awesome. It was really interesting. And then it also learned that it was extremely dangerous for those guys to make it back then. These kilns that they had were just unbelievably dangerous. And what they do is basically the concept is they would take limestone, they would turn it into a powder, and then when they add moisture to it later, it basically turns back into what it was originally, except, in whatever shape that you want it to be in.
So how were the mines and the kiln process dangerous?
Well, the kiln, sometimes they would put layers of like I said, I know way too much than I should, but they put layers of like wood or coal, and then they cover it with limestone, and then they'd layer and layer and layer, and this stuff would fall down, and then it would put off these horrible fumes that these people would have to literally go into the kilns and like pull this stuff out of there. And the fumes were terrible. And then when you reconstituted it with water, it would heat up to like 500 degrees, and sometimes it would have these these minor explosions and splatter hot molten lava on you. It sounded like a horrible
That's
deal.
not good.
No.
And people lose their minds like when folks don't have their earmuffs on in Fine Homebuilding, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the average lifespan of the guys who did that, but I couldn't have been that long. My goodness.
Yeah. We better get to some questions.
So thanks for that, Kylie. Appreciate that.
Here, this comes from Andrew. Hello, FHB podcast. I'm a new listener and subscriber to the magazine. I wish I had discovered you months ago. My wife and I bought a 900 square foot house in Olympia, Washington that was built 100 years ago. We went into it thinking it would be a small fixer-upper, but it has turned out to be a huge project. This house had significant water damage due to a failure in the siding and moisture/wood destroying insect damage in the sill plate, floor joists, etc. We've taken everything down to the studs, completely updated the wiring. There was some knob and tube, updated the plumbing, sistered in new floor joist, replaced the sill plate on half the house, as well as put in mini splits. Currently, I'm in the process of siding the house. When it was built, it had shiplap sheathing with cedar shingles on top. At some point, a previous owner installed asbestos tile over the cedar shingles, which was starting to fail. We carefully removed the asbestos, patched the sheathing where it was required. I plan to install hardy plank with a rain screen using 1x3 furring strips. Where I'm having an issue is the front porch. The house has a covered front porch that is made of concrete. The concrete was added after the asbestos siding was installed because the concrete was poured right up to it. Now that we removed the siding, there's a gap about an inch wide but an inch deep and an inch deep that sits right at the wood sheathing. My worry is that driving rain will find its way back there and cause more wood damage. How do I fill this little trench and effectively keep water from getting back in there? My neighbor suggested filling it with exterior foam, painting it with red guard. I have also considered putting some metal flashing against the sheathing and filling the gap with hand-mixed concrete. Any advice would be highly appreciated. Thanks for all your wisdom and advice. P.S. The project guide for siding and trim has been a great resource for me on this project. Peace, Andrew. Well, thanks for those kind words, Andrew. Boy, so why do people do this? Why the heck do people put asphalt and concrete up against siding? And it happens all the time.
Because it's easy for them. The guy's doing it, you know.
Yep.
It looks clean. Like, no one knows the better, right? You know, my question here is, so it sounds like they were able to strip the siding out, and that's why there's a gap. So if that water can continue through and just, like, go down the side of the foundation, like, so they need to extend a WRB down there, and then, sure, flash it.
Yeah.
My guessing is they were able to get the siding out is because it was compost. Behind the asbestos, right?
I don't hear people say asbestos siding fails. I mean, that stuff lasts forever.
But it's got the cedar behind it would rot and then they'd be loose.
Yeah. When we were doing remodels like this, siding, we would just flash it. I mean, the important thing is, first of all, the stoop has to be sloping away from the house or you got bigger problems. No matter what you do, it's going to be a problem. But if it is, we would just bend some, what we would call dormer flashing. It's just kind of shaped in an L. The key is to underbend it, so don't bend it at a 90-degree.
Right.
And that's why we use dormer flashing, because it already comes.
Whoa, hold on, Mark. We got to explain what underbend to folks who don't know what that means. That means you don't bend it 90 degrees. You bend it less, so when you push it down, it holds tight to the concrete, right?
It's got flex on it.
Yeah.
It's pushing, always pushing down. And before we put it on, we would run a pretty healthy size bead of sealant on underneath it.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
And don't shim out on the sealant there, because that's potentially part of the solution if you have wind-driven rain.
And not a silicone, or use some type of poly or something.
Use quad, because quad works in everything.
Can't go. It does. It really does.
I use Zip Liquid Flash because I just did this at my sister's, and I had.
So you painted it right on the sheathing, or under your flashing? What'd you do?
Yeah, I'm saying, like, when I put the flashing was up against a rain screen. So, and this concrete was about an inch away also from the building. And I didn't want to close it at all. If water can get in there, it can get out, but I want to flash and prevent it. So, yeah, I basically did exactly what Mark said, only I embedded it in the concrete in Zip Liquid Flash.
I don't think it would be bad to, if that, concrete was truly poured against the lowest course of siding, there's a good chance that it's actually undercutting the sheathing and siding. So it could be a pocket for water. And if it is that, I would suggest drilling holes in it, assuming there's not your water line or your electric service below it, with a rotary hammer, so it could drain out of there and weep out.
Yeah, we never bothered filling the gap, and just run the flashing, continue it down the sides as well, and just make sure where they connect that it's all sealed up nice.
It would not hurt to use an adhered WRB down there, or as Colin suggested, a traldehyde or a liquid stuff, right?
Sure.
Red Guard, which is for folks who don't know, a waterproofing material for under tile. You're not supposed to use that outdoors. But that person had the right idea, I think. Was that at all helpful? Y'all, do you think we did? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you flash that, and like you said, if water gets in, and you could drill a hole or two so it can get out, it's probably not going to get in once you flash it, but if it does, you're good.
This comes from Sean. He says, my wife and I are looking to purchase our first home in the metro Atlanta area in the coming months. It is Zone 3A, warm, humid. The homes in the area we are looking at are 1970s to 1990s, skewing toward the older slab-on-grade homes. Aside from the bulk water issues the houses might have, the first thing I want to address is air sealing. I plan on getting an independent energy audit within the first few months. One thing I would love to do as soon as possible is address the vented attic that will surely be in the house. My questions are, is it risky to convert a vented attic to an unvented attic in a house this age? And is the better approach to seal the top plate and attic penetrations, then add more blown-in fiberglass insulation on top? This would likely accomplish my insulation and air sealing concerns with the attic, but it leaves all the mechanical equipment and HVAC ducts in the extreme attic conditions. I've already identified several independent energy auditors and insulation companies, but any information or advice from the FHB podcast team would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Sean. What do you guys think?
So there's mechanicals up there.
Yeah, we got an air handler and ductwork in this, unconditioned attic.
So it sounds like the ideal, if he has the room, would be to treat it like a vaulted ceiling and actually close it in and make that your air barrier. But depending on the depth of his joists and what's going on those, those rafters, he may have to extend them down, right? To be able to insulate.
Or you could spray foam it, right?
Certainly that.
Yeah. Or both, yeah.
Spray foam is expensive by all measure, and we try and discourage folks from using closed-cell spray foam, especially because of its environmental impact.
I'd be interested to go up there with the infrared camera before you do anything and just kind of see what's going on.
At a very minimum, you're going to have to air seal the attic, and it's always a good idea to blow in tons of insulation. It's pretty forgiving assembly. And then to really insulate the ductwork, and, that's the best you can do if you're going to leave the mechanical equipment up there, I think.
And if it's blown in, if it's blown in and you want to get down, there's companies out there, actually the insulation companies who blow in attic insulation, they often have a service where they'll suck out the old stuff. So if you really want to get down in there and do some sealing, if you don't go the hot roof, this probably wouldn't matter as much if that's a conditioned space. But if you do want to, you could suck all that stuff out, or at least for $50, you can go to Home Depot and rent an infrared and search around. And who knows, maybe it's all good except for a few problem areas, and you can just kind of scoop the insulation out of those certain places and seal them up. But yeah, there's options. But if the equipment is up in the attic, I would highly consider a hot roof system.
But if he did, like, vaulted is how I call it, right? Would just then, because he was worried about the airflow, right? Because it's like all of a sudden it's not vented. So would you guys then cut a ridge vent in and put soffit vents in, or you would just let it go?
No, if you're going to put the insulation at the roof sheathing level, now you've created a hot roof, and you need to seal the soffits, and you need to seal the ridge, and
so the other way to go would be
are,
put a baffle. You could put a baffle and keep it vented. And
yes,
do the
you
same
absolutely
thing.
could.
So there's two ways to do that. One is hot and one is vented. So what would you prefer?
Well, I'm going to assume, given the vintage of these homes, they're going to be roof trusses. So I don't think like furring down the rafters to make deeper cavities is going to be an option. I think your only chance is going to be to spray foam against the roof sheathing and then close the top cord and those webs. Yeah. What do you think about this, Jeff? What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got space, trying to enclose the mechanicals somehow, it's like...
We've seen folks send photos of their little coffins they build around their air handlers, and some engineers caution you against this because they're not meant to be in that tiny of a box, right? No. They're meant to be in a big space. Even if you have, combustion air and direct venting, they still need air around them.
Well, plus the code says you need room for them to be serviced. You can't box them up like that.
The best one I've seen, though, looks like a big igloo cooler with like a hinge lid and stuff. It was fantastic. Some engineers spent like their, entire winter up there working on that. Sean, I think you got the right plan, is to get the company out there who knows what the heck they're doing, who can look at the specific house you're talking about and make an energy plan aligned with your energy goals and budget, because, you're going to be surprised at how expensive this is my guess. Or just get rid of all that ductwork and the air handler up there and put 2 or 3 mini splits around the house and get on with your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And just blow in that attic, right?
Just totally seal up the ceiling drywall and put 2 feet of cellulose on top. This comes from Nick. Hey, podcast crew. First, let me say that I love the podcast and resources Fine Homebuilding provides. I can't wait to watch the podcast each week when it's posted on YouTube. Yes, that's right. I'm one of those who actually enjoy watching everyone's face. I'm currently doing planning and research for an upcoming renovation and home addition that my wife and I have been planning for years. We thought of just selling and buying something else to fit our family, but that sweat equity has doubled in value over the last year with these crazy home prices. I'm a penny pincher by nature and have been researching how best to approach sheathing, air sealing, and insulation. While looking over exterior insulation, I came across a Martin Holliday article, issue 220, about let-in bracing. I'm familiar with let-in bracing being used in older homes, but never really thought of it in modern construction, which leads to my question. With material prices being higher than ever, and even more so than last year, is let-in bracing being considered more? It seems that either using exterior foam sheathing with OSB only in the corners or 1x4 bracing could be a decent way to save some money and also decrease concerns of moisture accumulating on OSB sheathing that would normally be sandwiched between exterior and interior foam. I was curious about your thoughts on this. P.S. Thanks to everyone who participates in the podcast. I have worked in websites/media for many years and can appreciate the hard work that it takes to put them together. Nick. Well, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
This is a great question. I got a lot of thoughts on let-in bracing. So this was one of the strategies that Habitat for Humanity used when I worked there to, A, make the houses more affordable, and B, eliminate thermal bridging of studs. So, and at the time, and I think they still do, Dow Chemical gave us as much XPS as we could possibly use. So we sheathed our little houses with this stuff. And the strategy for bracing them structurally was to use let-in bracing at the corners. And our engineer specified a 2x6. And we would put it in when the wall was lying down, and it's pretty easy when you do that, and it worked pretty well. What I've later learned is that if you live in places with tornadoes, houses that are only sheathed with vinyl siding and foam do not afford the same protection from windborne debris as a house that's fully sheathed, as you might imagine, right?
Right. Yep. So it's not even a structural; it's just the impact.
Yeah, things
I can
punch
imagine.
through it. Surprisingly, homes do much better if they have drywall on the other side. Where this is really a problem is up on gable ends where there's a sheathing layer only and a gable end truss. Those really tend to blow apart without the drywall layer on the other side.
Hey, Patrick, let me ask you, on that, I guess I have two questions about what you just described. One is, was air sealing a priority at the time you were doing it? So if it is, does it just mean taping the foam really well, since sometimes the plywood is your air barrier?
Colin, I'm going to answer that this way in saying that our energy consciousness at Habitat was still evolving at that point, and we were probably not paying nearly enough attention to taping that foam layer. But if you use the right tape, it's a great way to get a good air barrier.
Now, what about applying sidings and trim? Because you can't just nail anywhere.
So our houses were sided with, vinyl siding, and you'd use 2-inch aluminum nails, and you'd have to nail into the studs. You had, it was just tight to them. Yep.
I'll tell you one thing. I've resided a dozen of those houses that were built that way, and taking the siding off is a monstrous pain.
So you don't want to pop through, right?
Well, because you pop through, You're punching holes.
No
and
leverage.
How do you pry? I mean, it was
you
just
pull.
not. Yeah, it was no fun. So when I build my shop next year, if I have any money left, which is unlikely at this point, so maybe 2 years from now, what I was thinking about doing is, frame it up, put on half-inch, some type of thermal break, maybe a half-inch layer of foam, and then use a T11, or I think it's T111 maybe, like it's a cedar panels, or I'm not even sure that that's a shape, but because I was thinking about doing like a board and batten look. So if you just use the siding as the sheathing, I'm wondering if those are structural or not. Have you ever seen anybody?
I don't think anyone's
seen that a lot.
Done the data on the foam layer in between, but those are definitely structural panels if you put them tight to the studs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and I would think even if they weren't, you could make up the difference with some let-in bracing, I would think. But because then your sheathing and your siding are done. I mean, that's it, you're paying for just one of them besides some.
It's more challenging to detail penetrations and window and door openings with those panel sidings, right? You need to have that worked out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's
right.
true. My parents' house that they sold semi-recently was a T111 house, right? And yeah, the exterior trim was all like interior house trim with exterior paint. You know, because
they had like 351 colonial casing around the windows and stuff.
That type of stuff, you know, just like in bizarre like outside corners. Like, well, how do you finish the outside? I mean, you can think of, you just like Patrick said, you just need to work it out in advance.
One of my
picture frame around the windows and treat the foam like it was sheathing with a small picture frame of half, plywood around it or something.
It's just, but yeah, how are you flashing to the siding? Are you flashing to the foam?
If you tape, yeah.
Okay, all right.
One of my mentors, Jay Carroll, who worked at the lumberyard where I worked, said one time that every one of those T111 homes, and there's a bunch of them in Vermont, because it's a pretty affordable way to build a house, they're always rotted below and above the windows because of bad detailing, right? Nobody, at least in that period when those homes are built in the 80s and early 90s, like was detailing them right. They just like
slap the window in and
cock it.
Cock it and run.
There's other ways to do let-in bracing, Nick. So Simpson makes a product that used to be called TWB, tension wind bracing, and it's like a probably 1.5 inch wide piece of steel in a T shape, and you run a saw, in a diagonal on the studs, and the T bracing's one flange is the width of the saw kerf, and you put it in there and drive nails through it, and it's super fast and easy. Way faster and easier than using wood bracing, but it probably costs more now because steel is crazy expensive. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen the piece of hardware and always wondered what it was for.
I've never, as a matter of fact, I've never seen, so all those, and I think they were covered in Celotex, I think was the brand maybe. Every one that I've ever resided had those metal. I've never seen a let-in actual wood bracing. It's always been those.
I don't think you see it much anymore because I think building inspectors want fully sheathed walls, and probably for good reason in much of the country, right? There's good reasons to put plywood or OSB on the exterior of your house for strength.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen let-in bracing with sheathing just because they needed the extra, I guess, strength. It was in a
if you have a huge window opening or whatever, and you don't have enough run of sheathing for bracing, that's probably a likely solution.
Yeah.
Like I said, Nick, my thinking is evolved on this subject. I was all gung-ho about saving energy for folks when I was building habitat houses, but I've seen damage from tornadoes more recently, and I think the best solution is, sheathing with a foam layer, or if you want to do it easier, zip R.
There you
go. This comes from Cole. He commented on our YouTube FHB podcast post. He says, a lot of people don't realize that 8% of all global carbon emission comes from concrete, specifically the Portland cement component, 0.9 pounds of CO2 for every pound of cement. I'd love to hear more about modern use of lime mortar, which is actually carbon negative, and limecrete and sand lime bricks in eco-friendly home building. I know these are more common in Europe, possibly because of all the historical buildings. This knowledge is centuries, if not millennia old, but it seems we've abandoned it for the convenience of Portland cement, even when we don't need its strength advantages. Well, maybe we learned why it's been abandoned because folks were dying in the lime kilns, right, Mark?
Yeah, right. They said that it was dropped during the Industrial Revolution, basically for speed and time and convenience.
Because Portland cures so much faster, right? Isn't that the long and short of it?
Has a lot to do with it, yeah. And it's just easier, yeah. It's just clay is easier to manufacture than lime.
I mean, let's call this our lime special edition, right? So since you went down this rabbit hole, you might as well take the rest of us with you. What is Portland cement? Where is it coming from? why is it so bad for carbon?
That I don't know. Actually, because in some of the things in that one little BBC special, one of the contractors that was working with this new lime-based concrete or plaster, he said that it actually absorbs carbon, and they didn't go into the details, and I have no idea how that works.
I think it's the chemical reaction is what's going on, right, Jeff? Matt Milham used to talk about this all the time. He was fascinated by it too.
Yeah. I don't know the exact mechanism of it, but
I just
my
wonder.
understanding.
So yeah,
I just
wonder. Like the first building that they know they built with lime, and I think about this with other materials, these ancient materials, was thinking like Jericho at 7,500 BC or something. It's like, how did this person say, hey, if I find this particular stone and crush it and burn it and then add water to it again, it's amazing. It's like, what? How did that happen?
When I do that, my neighbors want to call the cops. I don't know what's up with that.
You're still panning for gold in your river?
Yeah, I tried to make Liam make that his passion, but he's not buying it. I was figuring that was going to be his college savings account, right? But yeah, no, it's kind of boring as it turns out.
Get him a metal detector, because then he can find things and then dig them. The headphone.
Oh, I think he would be all over that, dude.
Oh yeah. I have a friend in Vermont who's convinced he's going to strike gold.
Oh yeah, he's going to find a nugget in the hills of Vermont.
Yeah, he's convinced one of those little tributaries is just chock full. And he's out in the woods all the time.
I live right next to a river, so I figured, some pirate had to stash away a treasure somewhere around here. So
I've
been digging. Yeah, and I've been digging a lot of holes and have yet to find any gold whatsoever. And I tell all the excavators, it's like, you know what? If you find something, I'll split it with you.
So tell me, I have difficulty leaving my projects alone. I think Jeff would totally confirm that. What's it like for Colin for it to take weeks on your projects or months? And I'm going to ask you the same thing, Mark. And Jeff, your deck is kind of taking a hiatus. So I'm going to ask you all for advice on how to let it go and, enjoy the zen of building more.
Well, I think that's the key is I often feel the pressure, it's Saturday morning. I have 2 days. What can I get? I have to get this far. And then, oh my God, I don't have this one product. I have to run to the store. Things get sabotaged. I don't have somebody working with me that can go run and get something or hold the other side of a board. So maybe it's getting complicated working alone and slow, and just be okay with it. Learn to like the craft. I mean, if you're doing it at your house, try and find the joy in doing it and who you're doing it for. But, for me, it's cleaning up really well Sunday night. So Monday through Friday.
It helps you let go of it?
It does, and it's not in your way. You're not stubbing your toe on tools you've left around, etc. I mean, I have some, I have ram board down on the ground and the zipper, but still, it's that's what's keeping it neat,
Yeah.
So keeping a clean job site. But it's not easy, It's not easy living in construction.
How about you, Mark?
I'm a terrible. I can't stop. I have to. First of all, I enjoy doing it. It's one of the things that. So for me, doing it, right now I work till about 4:30 and work there till 7 or 7:30, and it's 5-6 nights a week. But you know what? I enjoy it, so I don't mind. It's not for me. Well, there's certain things that I don't. You don't enjoy all parts of it, but the parts I don't enjoy, I'm just in a hurry to get done with them so I can get to the ones that I do enjoy. So, I mean, I could not leave my house for a month, work on my house, the house that I'm building every single day. And there's no balance, but balance is overrated.
So I would have difficulty doing my actual job if I was building my own house. I know myself, I would want to be working on it all the time. And
it's,
even if it's just making material lists,
make sure
thinking about it, right? Yeah. You just your thoughts are consumed with it.
So what I tried to do, I figured there's going to be a half an hour at least interruption. So and it's just kind of scheduling. I guess that is kind of a balance. I try to get up, sit at my computer by 6:30, and there's going to be an hour worth of email correspondence that have nothing to do with anything but my house, and then get done with that by 7 or 7:30, and then try to not think about it until And sometimes there's a window right next to me, and I can kind of see out there. So
that's got to be just torture.
I just got to close the shades.
Well, you have to put like a picture of the completed house up in that window.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly.
How about you, Jeff? It doesn't seem to bother you as much.
No, I mean, I kind of spent my whole life with half completed projects. I mean, my dad was very good at that. I mean, for literally years, our kitchen was countertops on orange crates, you know.
How about Robin? She is tolerant of the stuff that's in flux?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because her dad was a remodeler and a serial remodeler of his own house. So it's kind of, she grew up that way too. You know, and it does, you know, it's like sometimes it'll drive me crazy, but most of the time I just like can compartmentalize it. And I mean, right now the picnic table is sitting in our family room, but
that sounds perfect for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I would kill
Mark,
that.
what's your wife's name, and how does she feel about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Roseanne. And,
how does Roseanne feel about building and living in a barndominium?
You know what? It's great. I don't think too many wives out there would appreciate it, but she's a trooper. That's why we've been married for 20 plus years. She can put up with me. That's it. That's the number one reason why. So,
Colin, how about Patty? Does she start to bug you about stuff?
Only if I'm not working on it consistently. You know, if things are getting done and changing, it's just, she's happy. She wants it done. So, but yeah, I know it's hard. She likes a really clean house, and every weekend I destroy it because even though I've got it like zippered off or whatever, you know, at some point I have to walk through a house to get something, and I'm mad, and it's the middle of the day, and I track sawdust.
Carol,
you mentioned, go
ahead, Mark.
Colin mentioned earlier about the trips to the home center or lumberyard or whatever, and those that's been huge for me because for me to leave, it's 25. I mean, it's not that far, but the roads are small and windy, and it takes 25 to a half an hour just to get to Lowe's from here. And by the time it's like seems like half your day is gone if I got to run. But she's done Lowe's trips for me dozens of times by now, and she's had to have saved me 40, 50, 60, 70 hours. I can't even imagine. So that's huge having somebody do that for me.
Absolutely.
That has become way easier with the advent of online shopping at the home centers, right? You can text the exact link and location to the thing you're looking for to somebody. That is fantastic.
Yeah, although I'm learning that the pickup, and I don't want to badmouth anybody, but sometimes that pickup thing it's almost faster just to go get it yourself.
Oh, that I believe.
Because you stand in line waiting for the pickup desk, and then you get there and they say, "Oh, yeah, we don't have any. We don't, we didn't have it, or we didn't get that one yet." So then you have to go get it yourself and come back to there and then go. But you're right that with the shopping online, just with the online thing, I can tell her. Yeah, I can send her a link to the exact item number. I can tell her what aisle it's in.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Carol is supremely patient. The only time she gets annoyed is when it's 8:00 at night and I'm still making noise and working. Like she's trying to chill and watch TV, and I'm finishing boards last night. She finally just left. She's like, "You're crazy." Yeah, it's a manic situation for me because I like order, and oftentimes construction, as Colin was pointing out, is very disorderly, and I like things finished. I like doing the work most of the time, but it does make it less enjoyable because it does become so consuming. So I'm trying to dial it back.
And I have the advantage. I'm not living. I've lived through remodel projects, and you're right. It's way more stressful than having something across the street I can walk to and just leave a big mess over there because I know I'm going to take out all the tools again, the very next night. So, but having it in the house, I'm somebody who I have to get it done. I can't have, I got to get it done. Drives me crazy.
So your project has made me super itchy for framing something. How far is it, do you figure, from Newtown to your building site?
A flight, a 2.5 hour flight. I think it's like 9. I think it's 10 hours, maybe something like that.
I would think more.
Yeah, you know what? It is probably more. I looked it up once, and it was whatever it was. I'm not driving that. I'm flying.
We talked at one point about getting a Fine Homebuilding podcast custom van, so that would be a pretty awesome road trip to come frame on your house.
Well, we got to talk about. I'll be setting trusses hopefully in a few weeks, and we talked about having a truss. I think I found a framer it seems like he cares about his craft and enjoys his job, and I'm thinking about maybe doing a how to set trusses story. I think we talked about that at one point.
Nice.
Great. Yeah, that's a scary day in my experience.
Yes.
Right?
Especially
Stakes are high, things can go wrong, things can break.
Domino effect.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've seen some real disasters on my Facebook feed with bad truss erection. Woo.
Thanks for putting all those thoughts into my head.
Oh, they were there anyway. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Thanks for doing the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Anything anyone wants to say before we go? No? Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Jeff, Colin, and Mark for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Please, 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 folks, do that. Like it on YouTube. Please subscribe. And please like us on iTunes or however your podcasts are collected. It really does help us out a lot. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Keep craft alive. Happy building.